Security groups, often referred to as SGs, act as a stateless virtual firewall at the instance level. The key difference between NACLs and security groups is that security groups are at the instance level and they are stateful. If you were to go into an EC2 instance, you could see a security group often associated with one. I'm not even sure that you can even launch one without a security group. I don't think that's an option. You will see other services like RDS instances or Fargate containers have security groups. Understand that underneath they are utilizing EC2 instances. There are virtual machines, even if they're running containers. And so understand that that is kind of the relationship that is going on here. And the other thing that I don't really list here, but it's really about the network cards. I forget what they call them in AWS, even though we have slides for them. But the NICs, they're the ones that have to be really associated with security groups. But yeah, hopefully that makes sense. Just like NACLs, they have outbound, inbound rules, so nothing exciting there. Security groups can contain multiple instances at different subnet levels. So security groups are not bound by subnets, but they are bound by VPCs, and so are NACLs. NACLs don't span multiple. They don't span multiple VPCs. Okay. If we're comparing security group rules against NACLs, it looks pretty much the same. The key difference here is that there is no option to say allow or deny, because we'll learn here in a second here that security groups always only have allow rules when you're creating them. The other thing you're going to notice is that there is no numbering system to set the precedence of rules, because it's not needed, because there's only allow rules. You can choose a preset traffic type. This is just going to fill in the protocol and port range for very common configurations. For the destination type, we have quite a few things we can do here. We have an IPv4 CIDR block, an IPv6 CIDR block, another security group, or a managed prefix list. I've actually never used this one before, and so I ended up making extra slides just so we could cover this particular interesting use case. There are only allow rules for security groups. There are no deny rules. All traffic is blocked by default. Let's take a look at some use cases. The first is allowing IP addresses, and of course we can do IPv4 and IPv6. If you want to specify a very specific IP address, you'd have the /32 on the end of the IP address to specify a range of one IP address. If it's IPv6, you're going to be using /128. You can allow another security group to have access to another security group. This is a very common thing you're going to see. Oh, I have a pen. I never use the pointer. But the idea here is that if you have a database, you may want to only allow the web application access. And that's a lot better than saying IP addresses, because you could be adding tons of compute instances that have to have access there. And so it makes more sense to allow a security group. So hopefully that one is clear there. We can have nested security groups. I don't do this very often, but the idea is that if something is in the same security group, it's going to automatically be able to talk to each other. This doesn't have to go through allow and deny rules because they're in the same one. But what you could do is, if you wanted additional security around your compute, let's say, we could give it a security group, and this one then has specific rules for traffic that is coming inbound from the internet. So there are some interesting configurations. The last one, of course, being the nested one being the most interesting. If we are using the CLI to create the security groups, it's as simple as this. We're going to specify the VPC ID. We create that. Then we need to add a rule to the security group. And then we need to associate the EC2 instance to the security group to complete that process there. There are some limits that you should know about security groups. You can have up to 10,000 security groups in a region. The default is 2,500, but through a service limit, we can increase that. You can have 60 inbound rules and 60 outbound rules per security group. I don't believe there is a service limit to increase that. You can have 16 security groups per Elastic Network Interface, the ENIs. I couldn't remember the name earlier, but the ENIs is, again, the most important thing to remember. The default is 5, apparently. Security groups do not filter traffic destined to and from the following. So if it is from DNS, it's not going to filter. If it's DHCP, if it's from EC2 instance metadata, if it's from an ECS task metadata endpoint, if it's a license activation for a Windows instance, it's not going to. If it's from Amazon Time Sync service, it's not going to. If it's a reserved IP address used by the default VPC route, it's not going to. So that is security groups in a nutshell, and there you go.